Welcome everybody, this is Christian Bongard from Sterling Knight Gamers, and today I'm going to do a new tips, tricks, and battle tactics for Star Wars Rebellion. This time, the Rise of the Empire expansion. This is an expansion that this came out a few weeks ago, and I've already played a few games with it, and I'm really enjoying it. And so let's go ahead and talk about some of the differences. So, there are 3 new units added to the Imperial side, besides the ones that there before. There is now the Assault Tank, the Interdictor, and the TIE Striker. These 3 units now use the new green die that has been added, which only has 2 of the critical hit icons and the rest are blanks. A regular die, both the red and the black, have 1 critical hit, and on the other side a now block ability and then 2 direct hits. So these dice are not as reliable as the regular die for producing a hit, but they're more likely to hit a target other than the die that they would normally be associated with. So, for example, if you have a regular stormtrooper go against an airspeeder, it's only going to be able to get a critical hit against that airspeeder 1 time out of the 8 sides. However, Assault Tank would have more likely to be able to take down the airspeeder, but wouldn't be as good as going against ground troops as a stormtrooper would. So it's just a little bit of pros and cons. However, one thing that's nice about it, in really large battles, you can only have 5 die of the red and the black, and you can have up to 3 die of the green. So by diversifying your units a little bit, you'll be able to roll more die than your enemy. So that's a good way for particularly good battles to go ahead and throw some of these in. One thing that's great about the Interdictor is that it blocks rebels from being able to retreat. So that's a great way to have the decisive battle that you want. Shield generators are a new structure added to the Imperial side. They have 3 health, and they keep the Death Star, both constructed Death Star and a Death Star in orbit, completely invulnerable to a trench run as long as it still exists. So that's really useful, and you can also deploy into remote areas. Another reason why you want to build some of these units is that it allows you to utilize these new cards and use the greater power of them. So for example, let's go over all the space ones first. So these are the new Space Tactics card for the Imperials. I really prefer this over the old system where you would draw a certain number of cards and it's playing at random. At the beginning of each round, you go ahead and choose one of these to play, and if you have the unit that it requires, you can use the more powerful version of it. For example, if you are doing a space battle and you have the shield generator, you can go ahead and play Energy Shield, and after the rebel player assigns damage, remove up to 2 damage from ships. So right there, you're just blocking 2 damage, and it says ships. I looked it up particularly. That includes squadrons and capital ships. Same thing with the reinforcements. Gain 1 tie in the system, prevent 2 black hits. That's great. Like, all these are particularly useful. Of course, this super laser blast deal 5 damage to 1 capital ship. That's a great way to blow up a Monocommand cruiser just like that. So these cards are really useful. If you have to go through them, then go ahead and use the bottom ones. But if you have the units and you save them and plan your attack and make sure you have the units that you want, you can go ahead and have a decisive battle. A great one, if you think you're about to win, is to play Tractor Beam. At the end of the combat round, if there are no rebel ships and at least 1 Star Destroyer in their system, you may capture 1 leader in this system. That's a great way to capture a leader just by doing a battle rather than having to do a mission as well. So the space combat cards, those are all those. And let's go over the ground combat ones. Some of these are very powerful as well. I really enjoy the AT-AT one. Destroy 1 structure. It will not roll dice this round. That's a especially when you have a prolonged ground battle, or when you're at the rebel base, you can blow up the shield generator, their new arms turret, or the ion cannon if you need some help in the space battle. You just go ahead and destroy one of those right away. The overrun with the ATST, just deal 2 damage. Supported the 501st, destroy 1 ground unit and it will not roll dice that round. That's great. Bombardment, this is a great one. If there's no shield generator in the system, deal 2 black damage. Just have it be dished out. All these cards are really useful, and by mixing and making sure that you have the units, at least in these planets or in the armies that you're planning on doing a big battle, you can go ahead and utilize them. Now remember, once you use a card, it doesn't get shuffled back in. It gets discarded, and you don't get your deck back until you've gone through them all. So if you've already used your ATST card, then go ahead, when you're having a build command, go ahead and build some armored tanks or some shield generators with that same unit type, and then that way you'll be able to utilize those other cards. Same things with throwing in some TIE strikers. They're very useful. So overall, the tactics are pretty similar in this expansion as they were in the base game for the Empire. I would still advise players their first few missions to try to take as much territory as possible. That way you can start building up your unit generating engine. Just because you complete successful missions early on, that doesn't really give you all that much when you can get a new planet that allows you to build 2 more units. And really early on in the game, not only do you get to capture those planets and then turn them with the Emperor's ability, but you'll be able to get more units. You'll be able to whittle down what planets the rebel base could be on or what they're going to move it to. Definitely don't bother getting probe decks early on. Just get your boots on the ground on as many systems as you can in the first few rounds. Claim that territory, particularly on rounds when there's going to be a build queue at the end of it. Now, for the other ones, go ahead and, for the ones that you're not going to add to your build queue, go ahead and remove those sabotage tokens. Do missions. Try to capture some leaders. But right before build turn, try to either capture or make loyal as many systems as you can. Now there's a lot of new cards in this expansion. A lot of them are really cool. Like, make an example, one of the Jabba missions where you just go ahead and kill one of the leaders. As well as deployment is pretty useful. It's a good way to figure out where the rebel base could be. And of course there's always like the classics like Lord to the Dark Side are really good. The only downside is with so many new cards in this expansion deck, you really can't plan on getting the one that you want. Like, everybody loved getting the General Veers mission where you were allowed to just land your troops, or to carbon freeze, or Lord to the Dark Side. You really can't depend on those anymore, but you can still hope for them. But just try to play with the cards that you're dealt and adjust your strategy based on what you picked up. Hired Mercenaries is also a great card, particularly if you get it early on, because that way you can just go ahead and hire Boba Fett so that you know you have them for the rest of the game. However, if you get this late game, you may want to go ahead and hold on to it in case one of your villains or one of your galactic Imperial heroes get killed by the rebels. The rebels have a few ways of killing Imperial leaders now, just like how the Empire has a way of killing, capturing, turning rebel leaders as well. So these hiring and promoting cards are useful to help fill in your ranks if you lose some members. So if you're close to 8, go ahead and hold on to it. But early game, go ahead and use it. And then that way you can just get rid of the least valuable player. Or if you're lucky, you'll get that card that allows you to have one extra hero. That's the overall strategy for the Imperial side. Capture planets early on. try to get as many boots on the ground and then focus on the probes a little bit more mid-game. Definitely try to capture leader and do whatever cards you pick up at the time of either exploit weakness or interrogation. There's all these cards that are really useful against captured leaders, and every leader that you capture is one less that they have to deploy on missions. So definitely try to capture a leader as well as get some additional planets. Those are the only things that you should try to do, is capture a leader early on and expand a few planets. But do have the Emperor try to turn some of the loyalty as well. I know I'm pretty much telling you to do everything, but particularly in the beginning, capture planets, and then on the non-build queue ones, try to capture rebel leaders. You can only have one at a time anyway, unless you freeze them or throw them in the Sarlacc pit. So keeping them one action down below you by capturing one of the leaders is very useful. So I hope that's been helpful. Do you enjoy the new Rise of the Empire expansion? I really am, and it's the only way I'm ever going to play the game from this point on. So I hope this has been helpful, and I'll talk to you all later.